Welcome back, everybody. This is video 6 of the Gull Guides featured highlight series, June 2025. In this video, I'll be highlighting an ID that's of interest not just to beginning birders, but also to many intermediate and experienced birders, and that is Thayer's gull versus American herring gull. The two overlap in some features in every age, but once you nail down the key differences, it's difficult to confuse the two, provided you have some good views of your subject. Importantly, as of 2017, the American Ornithological Society treats Thayer's gull as a subspecies of Iceland gull with trinomial Larus glaucoides thayeri. So I won't expand on any of this taxonomy here, but you can find much detail on this topic in the Iceland Gull Complex accounts beginning on page 389. Whatever the case, Thayer's is a recognizable taxon, and it predominates in some winter gull flocks found in southeast Alaska, throughout Vancouver Island, and down to northern Washington. Adults are more common to the north, and first cycles tend to be more common as you get farther south along places like Oregon and down to Central California. So I'll begin with this plate here, 32A, 37. And the reason why these plates are named as such, 32 being the Iceland gull account, A being the Thayer's gull account. So 32A is Thayer's, 32B is Kumlin's, and 32C is nominate glaucoides. So this is plate 37 in the Thayer's gull account. And hopefully you are able to recognize that we have a herring gull on the left with the pale eye and fairly extensive black on the underside of the wingtip here. The Thayer's generally is going to appear more short-legged on average, a finer bill, and overall it's just going to have more white in the wingtip. And this white that we're talking about oftentimes wraps around the primary edges, kind of like these half chevrons, if you will. And what those are really are just the pale tongue tips to the inner primary. So they sit adjacent to the black subterminal bands. And so this is more extensive in Thayer's. Often in flight, it looks like a string of pearls, and I'll show you an open wing shot of this in just a couple of minutes. So, is it true that all Thayers have blackish wingtips? Here's a plate 32A 35 that shows a little bit of variation in this. And so these individual Thayers here have blackish wingtips and more of a slate gray, slatish black wingtip, if you will. So we consider birds like this Thayers. They're found in the core of Thayer's wintering range. And until we have more data on these individuals, we do just consider them to be paler winged Thayers. Interestingly, these three birds have darkish eyes. And a question that often gets asked is how pale can the eye on a Thayer's gull be? If you look at this plate 34 by Liam Singh, this is a spectacular example of the variation found in eye color in this taxon. Some are just dark from a distance and up close, and then a small percentage can be as pale as, say, herring gull. Now, this is the exception here. This is fairly pale, even for Thayers, but we do find them this pale. So some of the important field marks here is just consider the overall short-legged appearance, the fairly small bill, the smudgy pattern on the neck here, and importantly, this white on the underside of the far wing here on this individual on the right. So in flight, many times what we're looking for is paler underwings. So this February photo from Illinois shows this quite well, and this is why Thayer's is often referred to as a white-winged gull. Seems like an oxymoron here, but despite it having some black pigment on the wingtip, compared to something like a California gull or a herring gull, Thayer's gull generally is going to show a paler wingtip. And you often pick up on this in flight. That's one of the best ways to pick up on the Thayers in flight, is looking at the underside of the wingtip, more so than the upper side of the wingtip. Now, interestingly, this individual also has a pale iris, and it has this kind of fierce, mean look to its face, because in general, pale-eyed species tend to look more fierce than the dopey look, more innocent look of a dark-eyed bird. And this holds true not just with gulls, but also with like songbirds, for example. The bird on the right here looks a little more menacing, and the bird on the left here just looks a little more innocent with the dark eye. And so despite this pale iris that we're looking at, we have a fairly typical Thayer eye pattern on the underside of not just P9, but also on the underside of P8. And so it's a fairly safe Thayer's gull. And so that's generally it. You're looking at these wingtips at rest. If you pick up on a darkish eye, that could be helpful if you're comparing it to herring. The fairly short legs, petite bill, but there is, some variation there, and it's not always a definite feature. Whether you combine the bill length and the leg length, there's a good amount of variation in that. So it's primarily wingtips, eye color, and then you combine the refined features, the bill, and more rounded head appearance, which varies, but putting all those field marks together, the deeper pinkish purple legs. And, it's probably important to also mention orbital ring color. So if you're not familiar with the orbital skin around the eye, herring gulls are typically orange yellow around the eye, and Thayers are going to be pinkish purple around the eye. So here's a herring gull. It's kind of difficult to see what's happening here with the orbital, and that's expected in the non-breeding season. But when you see it, it's a helpful supporting field mark that can be the difference between I'm not sure and I am sure. All right, so that's it for this video 6. I think next time we'll talk about California gulls and ring-billed gulls and some of these other more common IDs that can be helpful to get out the way before we start talking about more interesting age groups and identification pitfalls. So thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions or requests for future videos, I do appreciate any notes that you guys send me. So send those to thegullguide@gmail.com. And that's, again, all one word, thegullguide@gmail.com. Thank you.